hello, and welcome to the Coaxum Report. This is Terry Coaxum, and I am delighted to be here today. I am being joined by a phenomenal sister who's running her own business. She's doing some super amazing things. She's the CEO of Rigor Management, but her background is so extensive that I'm excited to have her on this show today. How are you, Yvette?
I'm doing well, Terry. Thank you.
Oh, great, great.
Thank
So
you for having me.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I see all this black girl magic, our hair and our glasses. I'm like, okay, so this is a match for the time. So I'm super excited. So Yvette, I want to first of all, welcome to the Coaxum Report. For those of you that are just tuning in, you can catch us, watch us live on Amazon Fire TV, on Android TV, on Apple TV, on Roku. I encourage you to download the app. You can catch us at ourtv.network. And you can also listen to us simultaneously on WSTX Bloomberg and catch us on the weekends on Temple. So we're super excited to just be broadcasting across the world about your barriers, best practices, and big ideas. Just bringing in industry leaders to talk to small businesses and business owners and organizations about how to do things and some of the barriers we ran into and doing our processes and some strategies and then ending with some solutions. So Yvette, I want to talk to you today because like I said, you have an extensive background in business and compliance and management, but I want to talk to you a little bit today about who is Yvette? Why do you do the things you do? And then we'll jump right into these multi-million dollar projects that have been under your belt and all the wonderful things that you're doing in this industry, how you're showing up.
For sure, for sure. Um, Currently, I serve as the CEO of Rigor Management, as you mentioned earlier. I specialize in providing IT project and program management, strategic planning, and organizational development. I have 25 plus years in IT, both from the private and public sector sides. I've worked a
Right.
lot with transportation agencies.
Mhm.
Most recently, I served as the lead program manager for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority in New York,
Wow. That's a
where I,
huge, that's huge. That's a huge deal. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a big
yeah, for
operation.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, listen, MTA is the largest transportation agency in the
That's right.
nation. And
That's right.
so it was a huge experience for me. I managed a team of IT project managers and business analysts, and we worked with the development teams. And I would say the portfolio ranged anywhere from $60 million upwards,
Right.
the various projects that we worked on.
But IT is not a space that I usually hear business owners talk about specializing in. So, what made you, go into the IT space, and what's different? I mean, I know, especially women that are in technology that had a bit of a hard time to get there, but once they're there, they like, they make their space
For sure.
accessible to others and all of that. So tell me about how did you get to even understand, look, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm
Well,
getting to the
interestingly
game.
enough, uh, I want to say in high school. In
Really?
high school is where I was really exposed to computers and
Wow.
technology, and it was just something that just really intrigued me.
Nice.
And over the decades, I would say, IT is everywhere.
That's
Whether
right.
you're
That's
walking
right.
down the street and you're in New York City and you see one of the Link New York City stands that gives you immediate
Wi-Fi. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
information for different activities that are
That's,
happening in the area. Wherever you are, technology is there.
that's
Now
right.
AI is coming out and that sort of thing as well. It's something that I enjoy. It's something
Okay.
I enjoy, and it's something that is very powerful.
Now,
Uh,
barriers. Have you had any barriers to accessing that? Have you? Because I know one of the things that I like to make to have my business owners understand is even though there are barriers and access barriers to access in certain fields, That's not a deterrent. In fact, that's the reason why you go into that space, because then you give access to those that are in your network, and that's how they're exposed to it. Because exposure is real. I did a career day yesterday at PS 287, and I brought in members of the Divine Nine, and they talked to the young people about college and their experience and what made them choose the organization they did. And the day before that, I brought in aviation. I brought in pilots. I brought one of the youngest pilots, and her name is Ariel Massey, and she like really made the young students eyes open wide when she said I had a pilot license before I had a driver's license. And they were like, wait, what? You can do that? So that
Absolutely.
exposure is, I mean, that's key. That's truly planting a seed that you then get to water over time and see individuals like you grow into, to be in this space and really giving access to others. So, I mean, it's really important for us to make sure we're understanding this is who we are. This is who you are. You show up every day. Leading MTA in that space is a huge deal. You're saying it.
For
Technology
sure.
is there.
As you mentioned, with the youth, that's our next generation.
That's right.
We have to expose them to everything. And so, in addition to what I do in my professional life, I do a lot of volunteering. And the key is exposure, right?
That's right.
As transportation itself has so many
Yes.
aspects to it. And a
Mm,
lot of times, riders only see the bus driver, the train engineer,
right.
the people that they come in contact with, but they don't understand what's available in the back
That's right.
and the things that make those systems run.
Hmm.
There's so many opportunities out there. And so for me, I do a lot of volunteering with professional organizations in the transportation space.
Nice.
Most namely COMTO, Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. And so one of the things that we're doing this year, and we do every year, but this year is in New York, is we have a national meeting and training conference.
That's right.
And that's July 12th to the 15th, right? And one of the key components of that is our youth symposium. And that's
Really?
being able to incorporate high school and college students into the program where they can actually hear from leaders in the transportation space that look like them, but
Wow.
they're leading agencies across the entire nation and Canada. And so
Wow.
it's a excellent opportunity for our youth to just hear how the journey of some of these executives actually took flight,
That's right.
and it's within all modes of transportation, from
Nice.
the
And I said
community
that's a
all the
seed
way
right
through.
there. That truly is. That's amazing. So first of all, shout out to Conto. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing that.
Sure.
Every time I do a career fair, like you said, and we give back, I think about one of my brothers from another mother. His name is Senator Kevin Parker, and he told us how when he was in school, Marty Markowitz came in and he was like, I want to be a senator. And look, he's been there and he's passing the most legislation. He's now running for control. Like he literally, that seed was planted that day. And so every time I go into a classroom, whether it's an elementary classroom or pre-K, whatever it is, I always carry that story with me in my heart, understanding that something I say today may plant a seed in one of these young people that grow into this, tree that is going to take over the world in a positive way. And so I'm always very mindful of that. And so I want to really shout out Comto, because what they're doing is exposing young people, like you said, to things that they wouldn't traditionally see on a day-to-day basis. And that's how we're planting these seeds. And so this is great that you're doing that. It's great that you're in the IT space, that you're able to now have your own company with rigor management and help people to navigate that system in that space even more, right? But I want to go back a little bit, because I want to talk about some of the barriers, because I want individuals that want to go into the IT space, that want to go into communication, and that want to be in a space of transportation, that are saying, hey, Yvette is doing it, but I'm not sure that, because you guys don't know my story, so I may not be able to do that. because Yvette may have had it a little easier than I did and wasn't able. But I want to talk a little bit about that because you showed up, and when you tell me that that seed was planted in high school, that also makes me know that you had a foundation in high
Yeah,
school, whether that was your teacher, whether that was your mentor, whether that was your pastor, but there was something there that was able to anchor you to do the things that you're doing now. So I want to talk about some of those barriers so that we can highlight how important it is to just keep going.
yeah. So, IT is something that you can start at any level
That's right.
and at any age. For me, when I think about barriers, first of all, when I was growing up, IT wasn't something that girls were actually engaged in,
Yes.
and I found myself in classrooms that were primarily guys,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
our voices were not always heard,
Right.
and sometimes your hand is raised and you have the answer, but you weren't being called on.
Right.
And so I think one of the first barriers you have to recognize is, who are you in the space that you are in? And you have to
Yeah.
be able to adapt and be very flexible about your passion. And you have to make people know that you're not going away, right?
That's
Like,
right.
whether you call on me or not, I'm going to give you that answer.
That's
And so sometimes it's blurting out the answer, even when you're not called on, just so that you can start raising some flags and saying, you're going to see me,
that's
whether
right.
you call on me or not.
Right.
Um, I think, for me personally, yes, I had that foundation, but there was also a very traumatic experience in my life mid career, and it could have broke me,
Mm-hmm.
but I chose to utilize that as fuel instead. And so that particular barrier was, I lost my mother, my father, and my only sibling
Wow.
within an 8-month period of time.
Wow.
And at that point, I was raising young children. I was married at the time, and I didn't have the luxury of being able to say, woe is me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I had to use that experience as fuel, and actually be able to say, you know what? Sometimes you got to bob and weave. Sometimes you got to go around corners. Sometimes you have to jump over barriers that are there.
That's
But
right.
the key is having a network of people around you who are uplifting you and embracing you to keep you together when sometimes things are just falling apart inside.
And so
And
yeah,
that
that's
was
important. Oh my
time.
God. That is truly, I mean, this is so important. So you just gave me, and I got my notebook, I got my pen. I'm always writing down my nuggets because when you tell us, who you are in that space, you have to show up in that space, and you have to demand that you are heard. You're not silent in that space. You're in that space for a season and a reason. You're gonna get what you need, whether you call on me or not. I'm here, right? So you don't get, I'm not invisible, right? So
Right,
that's number one. So whatever space that you're in and you're specializing in, understand that folks know that you're not invisible. Right. So that's number one. Then you talk to me about, the traumatic experience you had and helping us to understand a lot of us go through tragedy, but you said you use it as fuel. So you made a decision that I am going to raise my family and my children, and I'm going to take my traumatic experience and everything that's going on me and make me more powerful in this space because I know and understand that my sibling, my parents are in my heart and my mind, and they gave you what you needed to be able to
right.
use that to push forward. And in the times that you're alone, you get to stand on that. You get to look in
Yes,
the mirror and say, yeah, this is what they would have wanted from me, because they want for your children what they gave to you, right? And so it's so powerful and so important for us to write that down and to stand in that, because sometimes that's all we have to stand in when you're going through,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
So it's
And
important.
everyone has something that they are trying to overcome,
That's right.
and no matter what it is, like in my mind, I always say, listen, it might be a bad situation now, but somebody else has a worse situation
That's
and
right.
they're making it.
That's
So
right.
so can you.
That's right. And I think that's important for us to highlight too. That's another nugget. Yvette is dropping gems. So make sure you take out your notebook and you write it all down, because it's really important for us to understand when we're standing in it, to remember why we're here, but then to remember also that there's other people going through as well, and their experience may be even worse than yours, but for you to understand that if he brought you to it, he'll bring you through it, right? And so
Amen.
your testimony is going to be the testimony of victory, right? And so you want to make sure that those folk that may be holding on to that little bit of hope, that they understand that Yvette is pushing through, and so they must as well. And I'm sure all the spaces you go in, you show up, and that is so important for us to understand. We can talk about mentorship until we blue in the face, but we need to make sure that our Black and brown children see folks that look like us, that they
That's right.
understand that we went through something too. Because sometimes we show up in our suits and we look a little polished. We look like we've never been broken, and they're like, well, you don't know my story, right? But
That's
it's
right.
in those moments that we step back and say, hey, I went through tragedy, and that allowed me to move forward, to take flight and to move forward. And I think it's really important. So those barriers are things that are real in life, right? Because life is life. And I need, especially my small business owners, I need you to understand that sometimes life be lifing, right? And
That's
it's
right.
okay. It's okay for life to life, but you have to understand that you still have the responsibility to take that generation with you to the next level. And so if he gave you those talents, they must multiply. You can't just bury them, right? So it's important for us to understand that. You've led a multi-million dollar projects, a many multi-million dollar projects, and now you run your own successful firm. Can you take us back to what was the moment that made you say, I'm building something of my own?
Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where your trajectory is being hindered.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how much further you want to grow, the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities just are not there in that space. And
Right.
so I had to figure out what space am I going to create,
That's
really,
right.
because I still have more, right? Like
That's right.
there's still more for me to learn, more for me to give. And so I said, I've always thought about this entrepreneurial path. I don't really have a like pathway that I could just say, oh, just go down this path and everything's laid out for you. Just one, two, three. No, I didn't have that. But what I did have was the right timing and the
Mm-hmm.
right prep. And I said,
Wow.
if I'm gonna try
Preparation.
this,
Timing and
I'm gonna
preparation.
do
I'm
it
writing
now.
that down.
If not now, when? And so I just decided I'm going to do an early retirement from the MTA, and I'm going to open up my own company. I'm going to start to get my certifications and go out there and do what I do, but instead of for someone else, doing it for my own company. And
Wow.
it's been a blessing, but it's not an easy road. I'll tell
That's
you
right.
that. You
That's right.
have to really be focused, and you have to really have the passion and the desire to just never give up.
That's right. So I mean, you just dropped some more jewels. You just dropped some more jewels, and these are huge, because you made a decision, right? So success is possible by making the decision and having a plan, and then having action behind that decision and that plan, right? But you talked about timing, you talked about preparation, and you talked about discipline, right? So all of these things prepared you for the time that you were to step out and do what you did for others, for yourself. And so
Yeah.
you decided in that moment that you were going to build something of your own, but you were prepared, right? You weren't willy nilly. You just didn't pop out and say, hey, I'm here. No, you planned for that. And I think it's really important. I just wrote a book with a co author called This I Planned. And we talk about success being possible with a plan, right? And we talk about, the things that we say all the time, and little things that just hinder us from moving forward. If you know better, you do better. Not
That's right.
not
That's right.
That's not true, because all of us know what we need to do. I'm always saying that I need to release a few pounds, and I don't say lose. I say release, and because when you lose something, you want to find it. I don't want to find them again. I just want to release.
That's a good point.
I just want to
That's
release.
a nugget I'm going to take.
Right? But we know better. I know that if I eat clean and I work out and I do the things that I need to do, then I'll get to that weight level that I want to be at. I know better. Do I do better? And somebody say, hey, let's have that, whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm down, right? So those are all the things that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about discipline, when we're talking about preparation. Understand where you're going. The people that don't write it down, we don't understand. We need to make sure that we're writing down a plan. And you had a plan. You stepped into your timing. It didn't just happen overnight. You stepped into your timing. You were prepared with the knowledge, skills, and ability to do what you do at Rigor Management, right? And then you made a decision. And you were disciplined about it, and you move forward. And those are all nuggets that we're dropping, because I need people to understand. I don't want you to quit your job until you have another job, right? So don't say, I was listening to the Coaxum Report and they told me to step out on faith. Well, guess what? Faith without works is dead. So I need you to have faith, yes, but you got to have a plan. You got to understand. You got to execute with action and move forward, but be prepared. And all of that we do. Now, as a woman of color in tech and transportation, what fueled your persistence and passion in industries where we're often underrepresented? Because you showed up, and you didn't just show up. You told us in the beginning, you said who you are in that space. You're in this space. You weren't invisible. You made sure people knew and understood that you were there. So talk to us a little bit about your persistence and the passion in these industries, because it's important to know what made you stay the course.
Yeah. So I can't take credit of landing in the transportation industry on purpose. That kind of just happened. And I learned very quickly the value of being in the transportation space.
That's right.
First of all, our communities. Well, let me start here. Transportation itself is the difference between having and not having.
Mm-hmm.
It's the difference between getting to a job or not being able to accept a job because you cannot get there.
That's right.
And the same thing with healthcare. The same
Mm-hmm.
thing with being able to get to family and friends and entertainment and everything else. And transportation is that one thing that
Mm-hmm.
connects all of that.
That's
And
right.
when living in New York, I mean, just getting up and going to the grocery store, sometimes it's not just a walk away. Sometimes it's a bus ride away or a train ride away. And
That's right.
so I became very familiar with traveling as a young girl,
Mm-hmm.
growing up, and to now, enter into a job where I was starting to learn a little bit more about all transportation had, and also the history of it,
That's
right?
right.
Like if you look at it, there's so many creations that the Black community has gifted the transportation industry with,
That's right.
and continues to, that it just intrigued me.
Yeah.
So
It's
you look at
mobility.
everything from the stop sign,
That's
right?
right.
The traffic sign, granted, was created by a Black person. And
But I want to pause right there, because I need us to really understand that. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Believe it or not, we're already halfway through. I want to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come right back, and we're going to start off with talking about the gifting to the transportation community and how that gave us freedom and mobility at the same time. And it still continues. It's the gift that keep on giving. It still continues to give. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
okay.
In today's fast-paced financial landscape, access to capital is the key to success. At the heart of this revolution is Case Capital Markets, powered by SETI Case. Here, innovation and investment converge, creating a dynamic environment where businesses can thrive and reach new heights. Introducing Grant McGaw, the Senior Advisor at Case Capital Markets. Grant is a visionary leader, dedicated to connecting businesses with institutional capital and strategic funding. His expertise opens doors to game-changing investment opportunities, making him an invaluable partner for companies looking to scale and succeed in the competitive world of finance. With an impressive 25 years in technology, 9 years in healthcare, and 6 years in investment banking, Grant McGaw has a proven track record. He has successfully closed over $500 million in high-value transactions, seamlessly bridging technology, healthcare, and infrastructure with innovative financial solutions. His experience is a testament to his ability to drive success. Case Capital Markets offers businesses direct access to over 32,000 venture capital firms, private equity funds, family offices, and institutional investors. This network empowers mid-market companies with under $100 million in revenue to scale beyond their limits, unlocking unprecedented growth potential. Debt, equity, growth capital, public offerings. These are the building blocks of the future of capital access. Whether you're scaling a business, seeking investment, or exploring market expansion, Grant McGaw is your trusted partner. Together, you can unlock capital and create long-term financial success. The future belongs to those who take action. Are you ready to elevate your business?
I used to watch BET, MTV, VH1, now I watch Tempo. Soca, Calypso, Reggae Dancehall. Don't stall, better get tuned in to the tempo. Don't have cable, they got an app. Go to your app store, download that. Whether it's tourism, cuisine, or the social scenes, if it ain't Tempo, it's a rap. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo. Who got the Caribbean views? Tempo. It's the latest in Caribbean news. Tempo. You tryna cook Caribbean food? Tempo. You know they got the music videos too. Tempo.
TravelShare. It Marketplace is an innovative, dynamic, user-friendly, and fully comprehensive global travel marketplace, featuring all Caribbean islands as a premier destinations. TravelShare. It Marketplace featured daily travel news, arts, culture, events, travel weather news, individuals' remote work, flex time, paid time off, family leisure time, and travel deals to better connect the U.S., Caribbean, and the Americas worldwide. So no matter where you want to travel in the world for work or leisure, working remotely or on vacation by yourself, with friends or family, whether by air or sea, TravelShare. It Marketplace makes it easy to get you to your destination. Book now at www.travelshareit.com.
Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel. Our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, rtv.network.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Coaxum Report. I am super excited. We're having a wonderful conversation with Yvette, the CEO of Rigor Management. Yvette has been dropping jewels about her space and what she's able to do in this space. I mean, just transformational leadership. We talked about timing and preparation. We talked about decisions. We talked about showing up, like who we are and how we show up in this space. And she talked about what she's been able to do in the multi-million-dollar projects that she's been able to run successfully, and how she decided that she was building something. And when we were talking about that, she got a little deep into transportation itself and how transportation changes the game, right? It gives you mobility, it gives you freedom and access to go places, to do things, whether you're going to the doctor's office or you're going to meet up with family. I didn't even think about it that way. Like, transportation is the connector. So I'm talking to a true connector right here with Yvette and what she's doing. And then we talked about the gift that keeps on giving when she started talking about how Black and brown people have given so much. We talked about from the traffic light, and we started the stop sign, and then we went into a quick commercial break, and we're back. And I'm going to pass the baton back to you to dig a little deeper into how we're able to take the transportation space and give our folks an opportunity to have the freedom of mobility, to have the opportunity to connect to all of the things that we need to connect to on a daily basis, but more importantly, to give back to the world in a way that, and we still have more to do. We talked about IT and AI, but there is so much more that we're going to be able to do in this space. And with you leading in your space at Rigor Management, and how you're able to help businesses get their processes and their strategies in place. And we'll talk a little bit about best practices as we go along. But I want to come back and allow you to talk more about how transportation is connecting us in anything and everything that we do.
Yeah, sure. Let's look at you talked a little bit about aviation before, but there's various modes of transportation, everything from maritime, which is bringing imports and exports. It's the lifeline to our economy.
That's right.
The new bike roads that they're building to increase safety for the bikers, and just being able to get around a lot easier with the different modes of transportation, the increase in the bus lanes that you see throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City. You see that across the nation, right? During the Biden administration, there was a $1 trillion transportation bill that was passed for infrastructure. That's for upgrades and new improvements. And, that includes everything from better equipment being used to better design of our streets and our communities, to the highways,
our bridges, and the bridges
Who
too.
can even get on a highway right now without there being some sort of construction? And a lot of that ties into the new technologies that are available to increase road safety, reduce the number of accidents that are happening on highways. You'll see in the roads on the side shoulders where they put those riveted streets or pavements, so that if a driver is falling asleep and they roll over that, it wakes them up. So there's just so many different types of technologies that are out there, and the design and the planning of the communities. This is why it's so important that minorities get into these spaces, because we know what our streets don't have, but could have if our voices were at those tables.
That's why we have to be at the table. That's why I tell my students that all the time. I said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
That's it.
It's not that decisions aren't being made. They're being made. They're just being made about you. So I need you. It's important for us to be at that table.
And I mean, let's face it, years ago, decades ago, decisions were being made to prevent us from access.
That's right.
And now reconnecting these communities by bettering the passageways so that we can remove the barriers, and we are now able to get closer to that access is a key focus now as well.
Absolutely.
And so no one knows our communities better than us. And that's why we have to be at all of the rallies to learn about the new things that are coming out, the town hall meetings, etc. Learn
We
it
have to be at the table,
and
definitely.
engage it.
And so that's
Yes.
another nugget that you are dropping. And I think it's really important. And I say this to my students. I teach at McGirvis College. I teach organizational theory, and I teach New York State in local government. And so one of the things that I have my students understand from day one is I need you to know who your elected officials are and what their duties and responsibilities are. And so in my organizational theory, I make them, every single student becomes a future commissioner, and I give them a commission. And they're responsible for that commission throughout the whole class. So if anything is going on with DOT, or if anything is going on in Health and Human Services, if anything is going on at NYPD or FDNY or any of those agencies, we go back to that, because you know why? The first 15 minutes of every class is dedicated to current events. So they have to come in with a summary. What they have to give us a summary of a current event, and they have to tell us why it's important and why do we care. And once they tell us why it's important and why do we care, if it's someone else's commission, then I say, future commissioner, they're talking about what's going on in transportation. What do you say about that? It's happening on your watch. And then they get an opportunity to chime in, because I need them to understand that if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. The other thing about the duties and responsibilities, I don't want you calling Senator Chuck Schumer's office for your pothole. That is not the place to call for your pothole. And I know, because I worked for Chuck's office for 6.5 years as the first African-American woman deputy state director. And we had those calls about those potholes. So I need you to know who to call, why you're calling them, and make sure that you are upholding them and voting for them and encouraging them and volunteering for them to keep like-minded people in the spaces you need to keep them in to make the decision, so that we can have transportation access and mobility in our community, and our communities look and feel like the places that we want to be in. We have public safety. We have, all of the other things, that health care. We have Wi-Fi. I mean, COVID put a black eye on a lot of things. One of the main things were there were individuals in our communities that did not have access to broadband. So then even when we had corporations step up and say, here is a computer, it was a paperweight. I don't have Wi-Fi. There were families passing the libraries to kind of get connected on a hotspot, because we had access and we were in the schools and in these spaces. We didn't realize folks didn't have it at home. So this mobility, this access, this freedom, this transportation, this connectivity that you're talking about, the space that you're in right now, is essential to changing the game for us moving forward. And I want to thank you for being a part of this space and even about a part of this conversation. I mean, it's like our time is running by, but I got to get into best practices. You've overseen massive portfolios, and now you got organizations through these strategies. What are some go-to best practices for managing complex multi-stakeholder projects? Because what we tend to do is when we get into it and we find out it's complex, a lot of us will back out of it, but you back into it. Like, you want people to understand that there's strategies and processes that you can do this. And that's why you're successful at rigor management. So talk to us about overseeing some of these portfolios, and what are some best practices for actually moving them along so that we can be a part of these transportation dollars? I ask my clients, gateway development, be a part of it, right? There's some money out there for you.
Sure. It's interesting because you mentioned earlier, with your students, knowing what's going on and how it's going to impact you.
That's right.
And so with projects, I think the first thing is building trust with the stakeholders that are going to get that technology once you leave.
Wow. Okay.
Sometimes there's technology that you have to go in and implement that they don't want. They've been doing something the same way for the last 30 years. It's working, leave it alone. But 30 years ago, there weren't some of the threats that we have today.
That's
And
right.
so that's the reason why we can't leave these legacy old systems in place.
That's right.
And so the first thing is building trust.
Mm.
You have to build trust with the team that you're going in with
Mhm.
and with the stakeholders who are going to be impacted.
That's right. That's right.
And once you can build that trust and you work with them
Mhm.
and you're not talking to them, they are a part of the team. Their input is just as important as the experts that you're bringing to the table with
That's
all the
right.
various experiences. You know, there's developers and project leaders and all those various roles, but it's the individuals who are the subject matter experts of this is the work that I do every day, and this is what I need to be able to do once you're gone.
That's
So
right.
when you leave, they have to appreciate the fact that they can still do their job, but they can do it faster and they can do it better.
And that's
And
important.
instead of focusing on so much manual effort,
Mhm.
now I can focus my time on the operation and
Mm.
making things more efficient.
Wow. That's amazing that you're talking about that, because that's the one thing you don't get back, and that's time, right?
That's
So
right.
if you're able to build trust with your teams and your stakeholders and put the processes in place that they can do their work smarter and not harder, right? Then they're able to get some of that time back to do some other things that you need them to do. And I think that's extremely important. I teach AI. I did a couple of workshops around it, and I teach my businesses that, to use AI to leverage. First, I demystify it for them and let them know it's in everything from this smartphone to this computer, whatever, right? So you're already using it. The banks are using it, Amazon's using it, everybody's using it. So it's being used. So now how do you use it effectively and efficiently, which is what we talked about, putting things in place. I had one contract that hadn't gotten paid in 2 years, did all the work. They kept saying to him, I need your proposal and your invoice. I said, well, first of all, you're not going to get a proposal because the work is done. I said, but we're going to give you an invoice with the scope of work. And we were able, and I showed him how to you give me everything that you did. We put it together. We put it into Chat GPT, Claude, Monaco, Copilot, whichever one you're going to use. And they gave him back the scope of work to stick into the invoice, and he was paid in that same day. And so he looked at me like I was going to pay somebody. I was like, you don't have to. You have the technology in place. This is a large language model. You
Yes.
have that technology in place that you can pull it to your phone, to your computer, and do the things that you need to do. We don't have to be afraid of language anymore. Now, one of the things that my students used to say, I hate writing. Why do you hate writing? Because I have to do all of this research, and then it may not sound right, and my grammar and this and that. Ask Claude, ask Copilot, can you show me where I could get better strategies on writing? Here is what I'm thinking. Can you give me X, Y, and Z? Put in the prompts and allow it to teach you how to do things better. We're not replacing our brains. And I tell my students all the time, we're not replacing our brain. We're using this to help us think better, faster. It's pulling in language. It's like, well, maybe not you, but I remember going to the library and I had a little index card and I had to look things up, a card catalog. Now you just press it into your computer and it's pulling it from wherever you need it in the world. Now you're checking it because it will hallucinate. So then you're asking the right prompts. Tell me, where'd you get this information from? And then you go back and do your research. I even had to change it in my classroom. I asked my students to write a paper. I know that ain't your writing. You've been with me this whole semester. So now you have to defend your paper. So I don't care where you get your information from, just as long as it's accurate information, just as long as you're not plagiarizing, just as long as you're giving the sources to what you're doing. Now I need you to defend it, because if you don't know what's in that paper, you still got a zero. What we're doing on these streets. And then
That's
they
right.
appreciate it better. We're using it as a tool for you to work smarter and not harder. So this is important,
Absolutely.
that space that you're in as well. So I'm glad that you're teaching them these strategies. When you're mentoring young professionals, especially women of color, what leadership traits do you emphasize most with them?
Uh, Networking
Yeah.
is one of the key things, and building those relationships. I think one of the things that I like to say is if you're in the kitchen and you're cooking different types of meals, you don't always use the same seasoning, right? For
Right.
different meals, you use different seasoning.
That's right.
And I tell folks, you have to have a kitchen cabinet of a that's like designed for your network. So you have individuals within your network, a diverse set of individuals with various types of experience, expertise, connections, etc. And the relationships you have with them is your connection to their worlds.
That's
You
right.
need X, call this person.
That's right.
And that person knows you because you've done things with each other over the years, and that trust is there, the relationship is there. People are not hesitant to say, oh, reach out to Yvette for this, or oh, Yvette, here's somebody you can talk to.
That's right.
And the recommendations, it becomes endless
That's
because
right.
your
And word of
network
mouth
like
is
a
still
tree.
the best, right?
For sure.
And you're connecting, and that, it's funny, Yvette, that you say that. My business is just that. My business is called Coaxum Connects, connecting you because relationships matter.
Ah, I love it.
Literally connecting people because of all of the different tentacles that you're talking about, all the different spaces. Like even you and I, Yvelle say, "Oh, that's my girl," and you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna talk to her because that's Yvelle's girl." And these relationships, that network, your network is your net worth. You're able to build wealth on the strength of your network. And so we always must make sure that we're nurturing every day. I used to have my students, when I was in the public administration program at Metropolitan College in New York, I was teaching. I used to have them read How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dig the Well Before You're Thirsty, and The Passion Test. Those are the books I would recommend to them because I needed them to understand that your network was your net worth. You're building, you're digging a well before you're thirsty, so you don't have to be thirsty. You can always get what you need from your network. You need to understand people and the entire person, especially if you're a leader and a manager. I give them examples of an orange, and I tell my students, they're like, "Oh, well, Yvette wanted the orange, and I want the orange. We just gonna split it in half." Wrong answer. Why does Yvette want the orange? Yvette wants the orange juice because she wants to be able to do this. I just want the peel so I can make my pie. Guess what? We both can have the whole thing.
That's
everything
it.
we want. We just have to ask the right questions. And I'm sure that's what your network is about too, making sure that you are nurturing it. You're not just using it, you're nurturing
Correct.
it.
That's
And
right.
everything you need, I can pull into my network and pull it today, tomorrow, or next week. And I don't have to wait until I'm thirsty to be able to do that. So that's a good trait. And I'm glad you said that networking is so, so important. And believe it or not, we're almost out of time. But before we get to that place, I want to think about some big ideas from where you sit right now. From where you're sitting right now, leading rigor management, what big ideas do you believe will revolutionize how we manage public infrastructure and technology transformation?
Okay, so I would say for small businesses, we have to have a mindset of joining forces and not thinking about other small businesses in the same space as just our competitors.
There's enough pie for everybody.
Well, you have to know who you're partnering with.
That's right.
Large prime contractors are doing it. They're joining forces, creating partnerships, joint ventures to go after these mega projects like Gateway. Why are we as small businesses not doing that? In order for us to build our capacity, we have to be able to join forces. And it's developing those relationships with other small businesses to see how do we complement each other.
That's right.
In our resources, in our expertise, and create a larger capacity. Many of us in small businesses, we're doing everything. We're wearing every single hat from marketing to delivery. And it becoms too overwhelming.
Not scalable.
We need those other hands.
That's right.
And everybody wins.
That's right.
There's enough for us all to go around.
That's right. And I mean, it's important for you to say it. right? For us to build those partnerships, to build capacity, to be in the same mindset, to understand that we don't have to be crabs in a barrel. There's enough pie for everybody. There's enough room for all of us. Even if we're doing the same work, we don't come with the same expertise. We don't come with the same network. We don't come with the same understanding. And if we're able to build those trusting relationships, we all can build wealth. And like you said, the big boys are doing it. I even tell my contractors, I've been doing more with contractors lately. And I tell my contractors, listen, you can pre-qualify. You don't have to be, I want you to be certified. And so I'm always pushing certification, making sure that you are at the table with certifications. But you can also now go after some of the big boys and pre-qualify and be on their short list. They're very surprised by that. You can be on their short list. So when they're looking for someone with your knowledge, skills, and ability, they can pull you from the short list because they have the relationship. You said it, the relationship, right? You said the network. They have the network. They understand that you will do the job that they're pulling you in to do, and you have the capacity to do it. And it's really important for us to make sure that we are helping them to understand that this is what you need to do to build wealth. This is what you need to do to stay in this space and to grow in this space and to give access to others in this space. I did a talk with Webeck not too long ago, and we're talking about being hopeful. And I said, women have done this all the time. We've been here before. So you're looking at everything that's going on in the world, and we're thinking about what next. What next is you holding on to that woman next to you, that you are encouraging her and you're giving her business and she's giving you business, and you're growing your network and you're building capacity. And guess what? If we're privatizing federal government, guess who's going to get the work? Business owner.
That's right.
So let's get ready.
That's it.
So we're ready, and we don't have to get ready. We're ready when the time comes for us to take it on. So that is some excellent advice that you gave. I want to go, I know I only got a few more minutes with you, but Kanto, you talked about it. And I want to really kind of give an oversight, because I want the community advocacy and the impact. What is critical for leaders like you to stay rooted in your community involvement? And we talked a little bit about it with the young people, especially. And you even talked about it just now with capacity building and strategic planning with your businesses. And that's a part of what you do with rigor. But leading but innovation in transportation, looking at now Kanto, an oversight committee speaks volumes. Why is it critical? Why is Kanto critical for leaders like you to stay rooted in community involvement?
So, COMTO, Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, is critical because it focuses on opportunities and connecting people to opportunities, communities to opportunities, small businesses to opportunities. It's a network that, if you're in one state, but you want to learn about the opportunities in another state, all you have to do is pick up the phone.
That's what's up.
Reach out to somebody in that chapter, and you're connected, right? It's that foundation that keeps us together.
And that's important, because we've just spent a lot of time talking about network, connection, capability. It's important for us to understand organizations like Kanto be a part of it, right? And not apart from it, so you can grow and have access to the networks that they have access to across the world. It's important for us to do that. And so I'm glad that you said that. We only have a few more minutes, but I got to get you on one more, right? Because we always want to end with solutions. What is your personal mantra or mindset, because you talked about mindset, that keeps you moving forward when it gets tough?
Surround yourself with genuine people. Yeah.
Surround yourself.
Getting rid of dead weight and surrounding yourself with genuine people is so important, because if people are just negative all the time, that's heavy weight. You don't need to carry that with you every single day. People who live in that space, you can't change them. Wow. And so sometimes you have to separate yourself. You may still connect, right? Because sometimes you don't just want to leave someone in that space alone. But at the end of the day, you have to stay focused on what your goals are.
That's right.
And how do you achieve them while bringing other people along with you.
Wow.
And we don't all have to show up at the same time, but it is our job to ensure that there's enough space for others to join us.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. And I want to thank you once again for just coming on the Coaxum Report and dropping all of these nuggets. I mean, for those of you that weren't here in the beginning, she came in. Really giving us some powerful inspiration around how you're showing up, around building trust and stakeholders capacity, looking to join forces, developing those relationships. And even in the work that she does at Conto's, talking about focusing on these opportunities and opportunities opening up. All of the work that you do, Yvette, is about connecting people to opportunities and giving them strategies to pivot and to grow. And I mean, that's super amazing. It's phenomenal work that you're doing. I'm so happy that you thought in our robbery to jump on with me today to just discuss all of those things. And so I'm going to let you leave some final words with our listening audience, something that resonates with you.
Work-life balance. Definitely leave time for your family. Tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And we want to just be sure that we're leaving the foundations for them to be able to continue their growth once we're no longer there.
That's right. Thank you so much, Yvette, for being on the Coaxum Report. You have a super amazing day on purpose, and I look forward to connecting, continuing to build capacity, and to help others take it to the next level. Have a beautiful and amazing day. Take care.
Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel, our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, rtv.network.